What is up everybody, Shwazy here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to install illuminated Bronco lettering on the 6th generation Ford Bronco. Hey everyone, before we dive into today's video, I want to tell you about Octane Coffee Company. It is the car-themed coffee company with a variety of different roasts paired with iconic names. You've got Big Block, Race Gas, The Goat. It's perfect for early morning cars and coffee or cruises down the canyon. It is the coffee for all car enthusiasts. Pick up your bag at OctaneCoffeeCompany.com, link is down below, and get 10% off your first order using promo code Octane10. Now back to the video. Alright, so obviously I am not the first, I'm probably one of the last on YouTube to install these illuminated Bronco letters on my Ford Bronco, but I figured it might be helpful for those of you that want another perspective or another video to watch to know how to install these. I think some of the videos out there may not show the electrical super in depth, and so my goal in today's video is to show you how I'm installing it, my method of doing it, and maybe it will help you when you're doing your installation. All right, now let's get started. All right, to start things off, these are the items you're going to need for today's installation. Now, I purchased my illuminated letters from Oracle Lighting. I'm not getting paid by them or anything, I just happen to choose them because a few other people have done it and I happen to stumble across them, but you can do a variety of different letters if you want to choose something else aside from Bronco. I also got 65 feet, although that was pretty much the only option available. You don't need this much wiring, but I got extra wiring. This is 20 gauge wire. I also got a couple additional fuses. Now keep in mind, these are the ATR fuses. They're smaller. They're actually micro fuses. They're a little bit different than what I had in my Hellcat. So just keep that in mind when you're purchasing fuses. They're the smaller ones. I also got a splice connector, which we'll use later on in the video, and a fuse tap, again, a micro fuse tap, because we're going to be using that to plug into the fuse box along with the fuses I purchased. You're going to need some electrical pliers, mainly to remove some of the insulation, a flathead screwdriver. I got some electrical tape and some needle nose pliers to be able to pull out the fuses. And then on top of this, you'll also need a socket wrench. And obviously you can also just use a adjustable crescent wrench. So I'm not actually including that in this section because most of you probably already have a crescent wrench or a socket wrench in your tool bag. Now, before we get started, I do want to make sure that every single light actually works. So we're going to do a quick test because it'd really be a waste of time if I wired everything in only to find out one of the lights don't work. So let's do a quick test. Let me show you how I do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab one of your letters, or each one of your letters, I should say. So I'm going to have the red hooked up over here on the positive. I'm going to take the black over here, and as you can see, they do light up. Now it's flickering because it's not a good connection. I'm just using one hand over here, but you're going to do that with each light. Make sure it turns on, make sure it looks okay, and then we'll proceed with the installation. All right, so now that we've tested all the lights, made sure they work, now we're going to remove the grill because you're going to have to take it off to do the installation. So the first step for that is to remove some of these plastic rivets over here. There's actually 8. 1, 2, then there's 3, 4, you have 5, 6, 7, 8. Remove these using a flathead screwdriver, and that way we can remove this plastic piece and actually get to the bolts that are connecting the grill. All right, so we've removed those plastic rivets. Don't worry if you break them because they sell them at pretty much every auto parts store. We didn't take off the one that goes into the air filter. We may not need to, maybe we do. Depends on if we have access to those bolts, but for now I'm gonna leave it on. That way I don't risk breaking another one. Now we're gonna start removing the bolts that hold the grill in place. All right, to remove the grill, we're actually gonna touch on 4 bolts. There's one over here, another one over here, another one over in the middle, and then the last one located over here if we can reach it. So we're going to remove these 4 bolts using a 10mm socket wrench. All right, and it's off. Really the only thing holding it in place was some of these plastic clips that just slide into the sheet metal over here. So you just got to tug on it. I recommend using the headlight as leverage to kind of pull on it, and then the whole thing should come off. All right, so now that we have this grill off, we actually have to remove these letters. This is the back side, of course, but they're pretty much glued in here. And so what you're gonna have to do is either use pliers or a screwdriver, or what I'm gonna be using is a drill to break apart this plastic so you can actually remove them. So this is the point of no return. If you're committing to doing this, you're actually going to be breaking the backside of these letters. It's not to say you can't glue them again, but you know, these clips are going to be broken in this process. So what we're going to be doing is using a drill, breaking these open and removing the letters on the Bronco. All right, and the letters are off. Pretty simple to do. Now, what I'm going to do next, before I install the illuminated lights, I'm actually going to use some rubbing alcohol and just clean up some of this space over here, because the back of the lights is actually just double-sided sticky tape, and it's not going to stick as well on a dirty surface. So my recommendation is just to wipe it off with a alcoholic wipe. That way it's going to stick a little bit better. All right, we got the Bronco grill cleaned off. Next step is to peel and stick. And you're going to want to make sure you feed the wire through some of the holes where the plastic rivets were sitting before. So I'm going to feed it through there. That way I can actually wire it through. I wouldn't feed it through the bigger holes because then it's going to be visible, since this outline is essentially the same as the one in the back. All right, so I have now flipped over the grill after sticking it on, and as you can see, I have these wires all free flowing. So next step is to connect them all together into essentially one wire, one red, one black, or one ground, and that is what we're going to wire into the fuse box. But first, let's do some organization here. Let's make it look a little bit pretty so you don't see these wires in the back when you're looking at the grill head on. All right, as you can see, I've organized it just a little bit. Let me zoom in and show you what that looks like. So I essentially just used electrical tape just to hold it in place. I think it'll do the job just fine because this area isn't really going to be touched too much. Plus, if it does shift around a little bit, I don't think these wires are really going to be visible through the grill. But as you can see, I tried to follow some of the plastic parts over here that rise up into the second section. That way I could try to hide the red and the black wires. But as you can see, I've pretty much routed it into two sections over here. You have the right-hand side and the left-hand side. And these won't be able to connect together because they're just not long enough, especially the ones over here on the edges. So that is where these two things come into play. I'm actually going to open up these wires, and I'm going to combine all these three red into one red and the three black into one black. And the same thing on the left-hand side. And then I'm actually going to combine them into one red and one black wire. And let me show you what that's going to look like. Okay, so to pause the video, I want to show you what I did here. I took the three red wires from the BRO, combine them into one wire using this red crimp connector. Now we have one red wire for three red wires coming from the actual letters. We're going to do the exact same thing for the ground wire, and then we're going to do the exact same thing on the left side as well. Now, one thing to point out, I did shorten the wires for some of these closer letters. So the R and the O, I had to cut it off a little bit. There was a little bit of residue or leftover wire left just because they were a lot longer, since the B is so much further apart. I'm not going to show you exactly how I finish up this side and the left-hand side, since it's the exact same thing I just showed you for this first one. All right, so I just completed the four wires, splicing them together. So here we have the red and the white. The white is the ground now. I figured it'd be the opposite color. So we have positive and negative over here. And the left-hand side, we have positive and negative. Now what we're going to do is we're going to splice the two red ones together to be the positive, and then the two white ones together to make the negative. Now for the wire that I'm attaching them to, I'm actually going to figure out what length I need. So I'm going to, eyeball the measurement from this general area, because it's coming out the center, all the way to the fuse box, which is where I'm actually going to hook up this wire into. I'm gonna do a little bit of extra because it's always easier to cut than it is to add, and then we'll do the final cutting when we're ready to put it into the fuse box. All right, so I've gone ahead and cut this wire, and now I'm going to strip open the insulation on this one, as well as this side, and then I'm gonna splice it to the red and the white wire over here. Okay, so I've got the single red wire positive and the white negative connected. I even taped these together so they would stick together. And I even actually took this wire and tested it against the battery. And knock on wood, thankfully everything works just fine. So the next step is to simply reassemble everything, put the grill back on, and feed the wiring directly to the fuse box and the ground. And I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so as you guys can see, I actually fed that wire pretty much behind the headlight, underneath this little mounting over here, and through the frame, inside and out this section over here. So I tried to hide it as best as I could, and now I discovered what I'm going to use as my ground. So the white wire, I'm actually going to shorten it to about right over here, and I'm going to use this hole over here, put in a nut and a bolt, and tighten it up. And I'm actually going to use this little connector over here to feed the wire through and then crimp it to this section over here. So I'm kind of just going to squish it in between the nut and the bolt, and that will be my ground connection. But you can use a lot of different things. You can unscrew the actual ground over here and put the wire over here through something like this, or you can find a different bolt to attach it to. But I figure this is a good one because I don't have to actually unscrew anything. I'm just adding something new and I can always remove it. And this is pretty much all I have at home, so this will do for now. If I see that this is causing issues with the ground, I'll find something else at my local auto parts store. So let's start with attaching the ground first, and then we'll work on the positive. Okay, so the ground has been installed. As you can see here, I added a nut and a bolt. Put the negative terminal over here in between the nut and the bolt to ground it. And I just checked to see if the light works, and it looks like it worked. It actually lit up. So the last step is to really plug this into either the headlight so that it turns on when the headlight turns on, or the way I'm going to do it, I'm actually going to wire it directly into the fuse box, because there is one particular fuse that will operate when the ignition is on. That's when I want these on. I want these on whenever the car is turned on, and that is what we're going to do. Now, with the fuse box open, the one fuse that we're going to tap into is actually this third one. So the one that's third from the right, it's the 10 amp fuse, and we're going to use that fuse tap to plug this one into the fuse tap along with another fuse that I will use to power this positive terminal. Now, the way I discovered this, and I'm going to throw up a link to the fuse box diagram. Actually, shout out to Bird Dog Off-Road Adventures for mentioning the fact that this particular fuse, which is the stability bar disconnect module, which my vehicle doesn't even come with, only turns on or only gets power when the ignition is running. And the ignition module is running when your door opens. Initially, I wanted these to turn on when I unlock the vehicle and the headlights turned on, but it turns out that the fuse that runs the headlights, which is these two over here, this always receives power. And so if I plugged it into those and tapped into those fuses, the lights would always be on. But there are a variety of different ways you can do it. You can also tap into some of the auxiliary switch wiring that's located down here if your vehicle came with the auxiliary switches. That way you can actually turn it on by switching on those switches inside. So as you can see here, I've gone ahead and removed that fuse. I've actually plugged it into this fuse tap over here. So as you can see, we've got the 10 amp that I removed and then the 15 amp that I bought at the AutoZone near me, and now I can plug this directly into here. And then I'm actually going to shorten this positive wire because, like I said, I added a little bit of extra length just to be safe, but I'm probably going to shorten it and then just route it over through this little notch over here on the fuse box, and then we should be done. Okay, and just like that, it's plugged in, and take a look. They are running well. So we're gonna close up this fuse box, clean this area up a little bit, put some tools away, and then we'll do the big reveal. All right, there you have it, folks. The lights are on. I currently have the accessory unit on inside the car, and that's when they turned on, and I love them. I think they turned out great. Just adds a nice touch. Honestly, this should have come like this from the factory. I think this is like how the Bronco should have been, but nonetheless, really cool. I like the way they look. The quality is really nice. And then when they're off, they look just like the letters that I had on my vehicle before. So you can't really even tell that this is the illuminated lights, but when they're on, they look fantastic. So really awesome lights from Oracle Lighting. Well, there you have it, folks. That finishes off today's installation video. Hopefully you guys found it informative, entertaining, educational, whatever that may be. And if you guys have any questions on the installation process, make sure you leave them down in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. But if you guys did enjoy today's video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly car videos, everything from car mods to car reviews and everything in between. Also check me out on all the social media at Shwazy_. Until next time, everybody, I hope you stay Shwazy, stay healthy, have a wonderful day.